Hello guys, welcome back to another video here on this channel. If you're new here, I'm Mads. I make lo-fi, mainly sleepy lo-fi. I dabble in some house stuff and some more groovy, upbeat stuff sometimes, but mainly I do sleepy lo-fi under the name Someday. All the links for everything is in the description if you're interested in hearing some of my music. I've made some other videos in the past going over some of my mixing process, and those have been received really well. So today I'm gonna talk about something that I struggled with for quite a while when I started out making this music, and that is mastering the track when you're finally done mixing it. So today we're gonna go over the effects I have on my master chain and all the stuff I keep in mind when I master my track. So yeah, let's just jump into the project. So right now I have my master chain bypassed. Let's take a listen to how the track sounds without any master processing on it. Keep in mind this has been mixed thoroughly. It's been mixed to where I think it sounds great already, and this is just the final touches to make it work on streaming platforms. So before you even start mastering, make sure your track is mixed. So I like to bounce out the mix so I have one audio file to work with when I'm mastering. This just makes sure that there isn't anything changing in the sound. Sometimes when you have some random effects in your project, it can vary from listen to listen how it sounds. Also, if you keep pausing and playing, which I do a lot when I master my track, the reverb tail on some things, they carry on and they get bigger and bigger. So that messes up how it sounds in your ears. So bounce out the mix into one audio file, drag it into a new project, and from there you master it. So let's take a listen to the song we're working with today without any master. And this is just a mix. So yeah, that's the track, some of the track anyway, without any master processing on it. So let's take a look at what I've put on it to master it. First of all, I have a very cool plugin called TDR Nova. It's an equalizer, it's a free equalizer, and what I mainly use it for when I don't use the EQ8 from Ableton, which I use a lot, is the dynamic equalizer I use it for. So what I did with it, I just wanted to tame some of the low end and make it all even across the spectrum. So I found the frequency at which my bass guitar plays at the highest frequency it plays at, and from there I made a low shelf that ducks every time the gain goes above a certain threshold. And then I just added a little bit of makeup gain to make sure that I don't lose any of the low end. This plugin is free, by the way. Get it if you don't have a dynamic equalizer. It's very handy to have. So controlling the low end in this way also helps with the next plugin I have, and that is an SSL bus compressor. Making sure to control the low end before putting it into a compressor. Make sure that the kick and the bass doesn't make the compressor go all wild, because the low end tends to have not more gain than the high and the mid, so we can get a nice overall compression of the whole track. So as you can see, the gain reduction is not more than 1 or 2 dB. I don't want to have super hard compression here. I just want to control the volume level a little bit. I also have the slowest attack possible and the slowest release possible. And then I have 2:1 ratio. So it's very light compression. Nothing major going on here. And then I have another EQ kind of plugin called Golfos. This is quite an expensive plugin, but it really does something cool to the sound, I think. So it's kind of like an AI equalizer, and it pulls up some of the frequencies lost in the mix and tames some of the frequencies that are too dominant in the mix, and just gets the same overall gain on the whole frequency spectrum. I've just pulled down the focus area to around 150 Hertz to not mess with the low end and just some of the high end. And then I only have it at like 10% recover and 10% tame. So this is with the Golfos. And if I try to turn it off, turn it on again. So to my ears, it just brings out some of the high end that is maybe lost in the mix without it making it too harsh. Next plugin on the chain is Soothe 2, legendary plugin. I use just one of the mastering presets in here called This Great Song Is Even Greater. And this just controls to use that poke out a little bit, not doing anything major. As you can see, a lot of the plugins here aren't doing too much because I already am very happy with the mix, so I don't want to do too much to it to alter the sound in it. The next plugin I have on is some form of tape emulator. I use this for the saturation. I use one called J37 from Waves. Before I bought that, I used one called Lofi by Arturia, which is also great. I got it for free when it first came out. I don't think it's too expensive, but sometimes they actually make it free once in a while. So if you don't have it already, just keep an eye out for when it becomes free, because that is also a very great plugin, Lofi by Arturia. But when I master, I like to use the J37. And to start off with, I use the mastering fat, tight, and open preset, and then I turn some of the knobs down and turn some of the knobs up, get it where it sounds great with my song. This is with the J37, and I'll turn it off so we can hear the difference. And without now. And again with. So again, kind of subtle, but to my ears, it really opens up the high end with some of the saturation and kind of makes it sound louder. And you might wonder now, isn't this just making it louder? And that's why it sounds better. But all the way through my mastering process, I like to check in on another plugin called Ulean Loudness Meter. And here I can monitor the true peak gain, and I can monitor the LUFS, so I can see if the sound is actually bringing something or is just making it louder. So if you take a listen without the J37 and take a look at the peak here, we can see it lies about minus 6.3 dB. And if we try to turn it on again, it sits around the same place, actually a little bit quieter dB wise. So even though it sounds a little bit louder, it actually isn't. And that's what we're trying to do with mastering. We're trying to raise up the perceived loudness without bringing up the dB. After the J37, I have a classic OTT. I just like what it brings to the sound. I have it at only 4%, so it's not doing a whole lot. So all of that was to shape the sound in some way, tame some of the low end, give more high end to the sound, give a little bit saturation, control the peaks. So now we get to the final state of the master, which is to get it up to the loudness we want. So the first plugin I have that helps me achieve that is a clipper. The clipper I use is the standard clipper by Sir Audio Tools. And what I want to do here is to clip the sound a little bit, so when I go into the compressor, it's not gonna go so hard on the compressor. I just want to clip 1 or 2 dB of the sound. So you can see here on the meter, I'm not clipping. Sometimes when the snare hits and sometimes when the kick hits, I clip around 1 dB. So I'm not clipping a whole lot off. And then I go into a stock Ableton limiter with the ceiling at minus 1 dB, and I just pull up the gain. Sorry if it's gonna be a little bit loud now. Of course we start at 0 dB. And then I just pull it up. Until I can see my meter. Again, just clipping 1 or 2 dB. When I work with limiters, I like to use 1 or 2, sometimes even 3, to not make it hard work on one of the limiters, to make it more smooth sounding. The last limiter I use is the Ozone 9 maximizer, ceiling at minus 1 dB, and I'm just looking for 1 or 2 dB of gain reduction. So after all that, I like to check again on my Ulean loudness meter, make sure I don't peak over minus 1, and make sure that my LUFS short term and integrated is around minus 14, somewhere in between minus 14 and minus 10. So let's take a listen and hear if it does achieve that. You can see the peak is around minus 1, and you can see the LUFS is about minus 12.5, So we've achieved with the master what we want to achieve. So, getting to this master chain for me was a lot of trial and error, but also I reached out to one of my favorite lo-fi creators and asked them how they mastered their tracks. And they gave me their exact master chain, and I used a lot of that stuff on mine, and it just sounded better instantly. Of course, you can't copy the exact settings as I did here, because every song is different. Every master chain on my song is also different. Not everything is the same. Some plugins I don't use on another master, for example. I also sometimes use other plugins for mastering that isn't on this track. So it's just a lot of trial and error and finding out what works for your sound. But having some kind of starting point like I did by asking one of my favorite lo-fi creators, or maybe copying some of my stuff, is a great starting point to work from. Just make sure you don't copy it exactly, because it will sound different on your song than it does on any other song. If you liked how this song sounds, it's coming out on the 8th of December on a winter lo-fi compilation with Lo-Fi Cafe Records. And if you like how it sounds, you can find my Spotify in the description. You can find my Instagram. Check out some of my stuff if you want. I just released a sleepy lo-fi EP that actually sounds kind of like this. Some e-piano stuff, some Foley stuff, very mellow and very sleepy. So if you like how it sounds, go check it out. If you found any of this helpful, leave a like, subscribe, comment what you want to see me do next. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave them in the comment section or DM me on Instagram. I'm always happy to help and answer. And yeah, as always, someday things will get better. Thank you guys. See you around.